I want to let you know that the first thing that I learned about secure coding is that it is much easier to go from being a coder to cybersecurity than the other way around. And so much so that as soon as I got my degree, I actually looked at Tech Elevator because I was just like, I could feel it. I knew that if I had a coding background, I could do my job a lot better in certain areas, and most definitely like web applications or those sorts of things. But if I had a coding background, I would be a much stronger, like I won't even look for a job in hardening for security because I know that I could not do that service. But even the red side, the penetration testing, if I knew how to code, it would be a lot easier for me to win in those CTFs for sure. So if you are interested in learning more about that, because I'm not going to talk a lot about that today, I will definitely point you in the right direction if you're interested in playing games or looking at a career in cyber. So. All right, so what I want to start today with is a story. So in Russian, they have kind of like jokes and that sort of thing, and they are called anecdotes. So this is a Russian anecdote. And it starts with this group of mice, and they're saying, I am so tired of being at the bottom of the food chain. We have got to do something about this. And they talk amongst each other, and they decide that they're going to go and talk to the wise owl and see what this wise owl has to say about what can they do to like change where they're at. And so they rush to the owl and they talk to the owl, and the owl says, you know what? I know what you can do. Mice are, you know, kind of like yozhiki, hedgehogs. And I think that that's what you should become. You should become a hedgehog. And they all look at each other, oh, that's such a good idea. They have those quills, they can protect themselves, they can roll up in a ball and like nobody wants to eat them. That's a great idea. And they scurry off. And then they stop and they say, hey, wait a minute, how do we become hedgehogs? And they say, I don't know, let's go back and ask the owl that question. And they rush back to the owl and they say, okay, we think that's a great idea. So how do we do it? He goes, I don't know. I'm the idea guy. You go figure it out. So that's kind of what we're looking at when we're looking at coding, right? So it is going to be much easier to start out as a hedgehog than to try and figure out how to turn your mouse into a hedgehog. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this. As coders, I don't need to explain the SDLC to you, but generally speaking, you'll hear this phrase now, shift left. Some people say push left. I meant for this testing to pop up as its own thing, but that's generally where the security will start, right? It goes through QA during the testing, and that's where we catch our security problem. And if we start with the security at the testing phase, then we're starting with the mouse and trying to figure out how, to build these other things in. So if we start thinking about coding and shifting left, the sooner that we do it here, the better it is going to be for your application. So during the planning phase, you can add this step in as part of the security, the ID and security, ID security and compliance objectives. Like, what are the things that we're supposed to be checking off as part of the planning? In the requirements, we can have you establish your security standards, and you can perform the risk assessment at that step. In design, you perform the code reviews and the static analysis as you're building it. And then you have, in the development, you analyze the application's attack surface, the document app security architecture, And then in the testing, you have the dynamic analysis, and then you review your attack surface again, right? So you're going to kind of link from step to step, probably the way that you're already doing your coding. You know, when you're doing the planning, you're taking care of all of these other components as you move forward. So if you start your security process at step 1 instead of step 5, your device is going to be stronger. And then in deployment, you're going to have a final security review, create an incident response plan. And then for maintenance, you need to stay on top of what are the current vulnerabilities that are out there. And so current vulnerabilities and exploits of the components of your app. And then have your compliance documents actually reflect the things that you're seeing and the way that it's working. So the shift left, I don't know if you've heard that phrase not before. Is that common to people right now? So that was my biggest concern about like this talk. It's like, I'm going to tell them stuff that they already heard. So now, okay. So I'm glad to hear that this should be a little bit more relevant than I was worried it was going to be. So some people say just shift left, the gentle one, and some people say push left. And I think the push comes from like, you know, when they get pushed back during the development process of saying, oh, we don't need to worry about that yet. And so they're saying like, we really do have to push to get the security to be built in from the beginning. And so, so there are components that you can add at each step to make your application stronger. And all across here, starting from the beginning, you perform threat modeling throughout the process to adjust your priorities and reduce the risk that will be available at the end. So let me go back a minute. So when we're talking about the attack surface is all of the components. It starts with what the languages that you're using, and then any frameworks that you're using, any third parties that it's going to be attached to, any integrations that are going to be associated can all be part of your attack surface. So any way that you can get in there, it can be test components that get forgotten, so they don't get removed. So that can be an attack surface. So your attack surface can be pretty wide. And so at every step, you should be asking, if I leave it as it is there some way that somebody could attack it? And if there is something that you can think of, then you should mitigate it to begin with, because it's a lot easier to build in the security from the beginning than to have to go back and recode because there was something that wasn't quite as safe as it needed to be. So it saves time and energy to do it from the beginning. And I'm not in a production environment, so I think a lot of the pushback sometimes comes from, I don't have time to like do what they're asking me to do to finish in this sprint and figure out the security. And so it's really great when you have a team where that's part of the whole process, is you have somebody walking with you along the way. So the OWASP top 10, and OWASP is an organization that focuses on application security. This list doesn't change much, but you can see here that all of the components, except for the very last one, kind of come into the hands of the coding person, right? The developer. Injection, broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, XML external entities, broken access control, security misconfigurations, cross-site scripting, insecurity serialization, and using components with known vulnerabilities are kind of all in the lap of the coder. And the insufficient logging and monitoring, that's like, on the network, watching from the outside, but that's the big thing. So I'm not great with like manipulating my screen sharing here with Zoom, but what I want to do is switch real quickly for a minute to show you this site, because I think it will mean a little more to you. So let's see if I can do this here. So this is WASP. It is review all. So it lists all these top 10 that I just shared with you. And when you click on one of them, it takes you to more information. And so you can see what the threat agents and attack vectors are for each of these items, the security weaknesses and the impacts. And then it gives you information about why this application could be vulnerable, and then how to prevent it. And so for like the top 10, and so what you want to do is you want, for whatever your components are, you can go out there and see like what's weak about this part. And this probably means a lot more to you than it does to me. Again, because I don't code. But it gives you example attack scenarios. So you can see like, oh, do I have something in my code that kind of looks like this? And if I do have this, then how would I go about fixing it, right? So it gives you example attack scenarios, and then it gives you information about how to prevent that attack from happening. And so OWASP has the tools out there for you to kind of go in and see what your vulnerabilities are. Am I scaring people here? Because I'm seeing faces. All right. This is like a really high overview of things. And there's like going to be lots of places for you to be able to go in and dig if you're interested. And I heard you talking about some of you are still in training and like, you know, whoo, I got to figure out like what I'm stepping on now before I go into this. But, you know, like you're going to get to that point. And I know because my cybersecurity was the same thing. I did an associate's degree in 11 months and I got 4 certification in that same time frame. And it took me, I don't know, I would say like 3 months for like it all to just like, oh, I did learn something. I can use it and it will come. So take it for what it's worth if you're at that stage. If you're at a stage where you're like, okay, I can start to think about this, cool. So asset-based protection and engineering for success. This is a quote, don't focus on what is likely to happen, but instead focus on what can happen and be prepared. Because a lot of times people say, oh, you know, this part of or this application is here and it's safe and nobody's going to ever get to it. So like, I don't need to worry about fixing any of those vulnerabilities that I found. Well, you kind of do, because that's what a pen tester does. They figure out how to like get through those other things that you think are like cushioning you so that they can get to those things that they know are vulnerable. I should have thought I meant to do that while we were there. I'm going to switch back real quickly.
You're not sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, I'm not sharing at all. So, okay. I was going through my slides. So I will back up a minute when I get back there. So let's go back to that OWASP. Yeah. So as a pen tester, like I have this here where I can just like, when I'm doing my CTF, I go here and I see, all right, what was used to build this? And then what I do next is I say, okay, so let me see what vulnerabilities there are on Ruby on Rails. And how can I start poking at this? what programming language, was here, the web framework's here, what else is being used in here, jQuery, let me go and see how I can start poking at that. And so this is just an extension that I have in Chrome. It's not like I had to do any work. I just pushed a button to see what's going on with that web app. So as a coder, you also want to, like, if you can have things like not show up very easily from the click of a button with your applications, then you want to do that as well. I'm going to stop here and I'll go back and share properly, I hope. Here. All right, are we back? Yay. Okay. Now I need to figure out how to move you all off my screen again. All right, so let me see if I. Okay, so yeah, so we went from there to here. So again, so that's not going to happen to me, is not the frame of mind you want to have. If you know that you have a component in your app, or if it's like something that's specific to your app, think about like, well, how could this be compromised? So gaining access, the most common vulnerabilities exploited during pen testing are these things. And this is where we start. So insufficient input validation is always where we start. If I find a form on one of those websites, the first thing I start to do is saying like, what can I type in there to confuse the program into letting me in? And I look for special symbols that I can type in there. I don't know a lot of code, but I know like I can start with that little tick mark and it'll like tell us that that's the end of that part of the command and here comes the next command. So I know enough to be dangerous, and script kiddies don't have to know anything either. They can go out there and find stuff to like plug in that they don't have to know how it works. They just have to start poking and prodding. And so you're smarter than us and you have to outsmart us. I came across this today. I don't know. Let's see if this. Okay, I don't think that will work either. So let me stop.
Square. Can you guess which that goes? The square. That's right. The square.
Yes.
And you might have seen this. It's been running on YouTube for a few months now. And let me share it. And I saw it today and I was just like, okay, I'm going to drop this into my presentation today because it is kind of the same thing. So they're talking about quality, the QA testing on the device. Hopefully you can hear this okay.
This is a square. Can you guess which that goes?
The square.
That's right. It goes in the square hole.
Yes.
And how about this rectangle? That one
Also the square.
goes in there too.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got this thin rectangle.
The thin
Can you guess
rectangle.
where that goes?
The thin
That's
rectangle.
right. It goes in the square hole. And up next, the cylinder.
That's right.
I think that goes in
The circle.
the square hole. Now we've also got this semicircle right here. Do you see a slot that was
The
tipped
semicircle.
semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right. The square hole. Okay. Up next, the triangle. We know what hole that goes
The
into,
triangle.
right?
Triangle.
That's right. Square hole. And up next, we have the arch.
The arch. Arch.
You guessed it.
Arch.
It goes in the square hole.
God.
So anyway, I thought it was hilarious. I was just like, oh, that's it, right? The pen tester, that's what the pen tester is doing, right? Oh, let me see. Sorry, still got it going on somewhere.
I had my first code review like a week and a half ago, and it felt very much like that. Like literally as soon as the application opened, my instructor's like, I can break it by doing this. And I was just like, why?
All right, let's see.
Oh, anything in there that will ever.
Sorry. So kind of the same idea is what's happening with the pen testing, right? They're like, you think that you have it like programmed the right way, but they find that one hole, that's all they need. All right, so here. All right, I think I'm getting the hang of moving back and forth here. So I'm telling you, like as a novice pen tester, the insufficient input validation, that's what I always go for first. I'm just like, let me see if I can get into this table. Let me see if I can get into this login. Let me see if I can like, what can I do to compromise it? So input validation, I think is like, validate every user input. And that's going to stop a bunch of stuff. Like it's going to stop the yahoos like me who don't know anything, right? Because to me, that's the low hanging fruit. If I can break one of those pieces, then I'm in, and it, you know, that's all I needed to do. If you're, you know, so you can get at least those weak people like me out of there. And so again, I got this list from Security Innovation. This is like pen testing fundamentals, right? Like this is just the bottom level of like, this is what we know to start looking for. This is another list, which errors are included in the top 25 software errors. And it's another tool that you can use. You can go in, so these are the top 25. And you can see the CSRF, the SQL injection. And so cross-site scripting, SQL injection are like two things that like, as a novice that I know to go after. It gives you links. So like, what do you code in? You can go to specifically to that area and see what they have to say about what are vulnerabilities that I should be keeping my eye out for to know not to do or what to do to prevent it. So basically what we want you to do is like start at the left and move forward, and let's create Yojiki, let's create hedgehogs instead of mice. And how do we do that? So threat modeling. So what I wanted to start with first is what's the difference between a vulnerability and a threat and risk, and what do those things come from? So a vulnerability is a weakness, and that is something that's internal to the network or to your code or to your app. That's the internal part. The threat is what's going to come at it from the outside. And in a network, you can have an insider threat, but it's still trying to attack the weakness that's within that thing. And so it's where they meet is the risk. So when you are doing your threat modeling, you need to identify your vulnerabilities. You need to identify where the threats could be coming from, and then list your risks out and rank them as to what makes the most sense of, you know, prioritize which ones can I work on and which are most cost effective, because you basically can either accept a risk because you don't think it's that big of a deal. You can mitigate the risk by making whatever changes you need to, or you can try and pass the risk off to someone else. So like that would be like, you know, if you have cybersecurity insurance. So we have three kinds of ways we want to look at the risk. You can look at the attacker centric. So who are the attackers? Why would they attack me? right? So if you are a government agency, then you might have another government agency who's trying to attack you. If you are a business, you might have spies within some other company trying to figure out, like, you know, steal your proprietary ideas. Or you could just have somebody who's an attacker who's just doing it for fun, right? Like, so you have some kid who's like, oh, let's see what I can do here. You know, they learned about some of those things I was talking about. They're not thinking with their heads, you know, so attacking something is okay if you have permission, but if you don't have permission, it's illegal. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who are missing a few thought processes in their application up here. So, so there it could just be maliciousness. Software centric, again, looking at your attack surface. What frameworks are you using? What languages are you using? What integrations are you working with? Would be software centric. And asset centric would be, do you have personal identifiable information that people want to get, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, or, you know, so that data is usually your biggest asset if it's asset centric. So you want to know what you're trying to protect, why, and from whom when you're doing your threat modeling. So the considerations, right? You want to think about the technologies leveraged by the application, client-side databases, REST, native programming languages, and integrations, which are the things we talked about. And the non-technical risks are loss, theft, and delays. So if you wait too long, right, in the process, and you get there and you find some huge vulnerability that might have been stopped earlier as part of the process, then you might have to go back and start again. And it's going to be a lot easier to, you know, build your Yojiki than to have to like throw the mouse out and then go back and redo it. The earlier in the development life cycle, risk can be mitigated, the more secure and cost-effective securing the app will be. So how do I build my secure coding skills? So there are talks. So I found this is actually coming up next week, and it's DevSecCon 24. It's free to go to it. You can just go to that website, sign up, and you'll have some great people there who know a whole lot more than I do that can give you some real specifics on what to do to secure yourself. Blogs. So this woman, and I don't like her just because she has the same color hair as me, but she has these blogs, right? And if you look here, it's like, and she's the one who uses pushing left because I guess in her experience, like there's been a lot of pushback, so she doesn't shift, she pushes. And she has so many parts. There are 2 screens of her stuff here. So here's part 1, and she has like your URL parameters, secure design, safe dependencies, file uploads. You know, what is it that you're trying to harden in your app? She probably has something written about it. And she does the purple. So the blue team is the hardening side. If you're a blue teamer, you're on the inside of the organization and you're trying to make sure that your organization is safe. If you're a red teamer, you're usually on the outside trying to poke in and break things. And sometimes like the red teamers will just break things and say, okay, I broke it, so now it's your problem, and not really like talk to the blue teamers about how they got in, just like, oh, I was able to get in, now you figure it out. So the new thing in security is to be a purple team, to work together, red team and blue team, so that you can fix whatever vulnerabilities you found that were exploitable. And so this woman, Tanya, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, is the founder of We Hack Purple. And she has, like I said, so if this is one page, you can go up to the next page and there's going to be another dozen blogs from her. you can play games. So this one I just found yesterday as well. I'm telling you, like, there's so much stuff that I put in here at the last minute because I was just like, oh my God, I have to tell them about this. So I got into cybersecurity from playing games. So I was my son's Cyber Patriot coach. And when we decided to start the Cyber Patriot team, which is a blue team CTF game, we went to B-Side Cincinnati in 2018, and they have this thing called Capture the Flag. So I didn't even know what that was. As far as I knew, Capture the Flag was this game that they played at Boy Scouts. And I did not know it was a computer thing. And so I sat there with the students and like Googled and Googled and Googled. I had no idea what the heck the questions were that I was answering, but like I can use Google. I can find answers. And so that was my first Capture the Flag. So this one is my first that I've encountered with coding. And so what it does is it gives you these vulnerabilities, and you have to identify which piece of code is broken. And let me see. I'm going to try again here. Let's see if I can get into my CTF, and I'm going to show you the interface if I can figure out which screen I'm in.
When I was interviewing for my current job, they asked me like what my best skill set was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a professional Googler." And my boss, and I worked there now for almost 2 years, and my boss brought that up the other day. He's like, "Oh yeah, I really liked it when you were in your interview and you said you were a professional Googler. Like that was one of the better answers I'd heard." I was like, oh, "Okay."
Well, I think it's perfect, and if you know how to Google, you can do really well in CTF. And I'm feeling like I must have closed my windows. Let's see. Yeah, I did, because there are my 68 tabs that I just recently closed, because that's the way.
You got a couple tabs open over there.
You saw that, did you? People tease me, but I'm just like, you know, I don't close things until I'm done with them, because I'll never get back to them if I don't.
I hide all mine in tab groups so that you can't tell. It's just like work, scope, co-routines, and then each one of those has 30 tabs hidden.
All right, so here we go. This one. We go to tournament. And so this is the one I was in. I actually got one right. I was just like, okay, at least I got some points on the board. So I'm going to accept my challenge. And
Are you screen sharing yet, Penelope?
I thought I was, but I guess I'm not if you're not seeing it.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, thank you, because
I know it's so hard when you're presenting. I always appreciate the call outs too.
okay, so do you see tournaments?
No, we see your presentation.
My presentation.
So fun and games, vulnerability category.
See, that's one. Yay, I think it's there now. Yes.
Yes, yes.
So I'm not sure why it's saying view solutions, but
click these view solutions because they are potential solutions for this problem. You need to pick from them the appropriate one?
Oh, it could be. So here it gives me the clue. So it says identify and select the code block that causes the vulnerability listed below. So injection flaws, deserialization of untrusted data. So that website that I just showed you where it talked about deserialization, for me to like know what that even means, I have to go back and read about it and figure out. But maybe you all know. Maybe, do you know what it is like? If you have done that before. So you can like, so then you can choose which one of these pieces is the insecure code that needs to be fixed. Oh, I know why it said that, because what you're supposed to do in this, after you identify the problem, you're supposed to fix the problem. So that's why it said view solution. So you're right, Alex, that I was supposed to pick how to fix what I found. So, so there's this kind of CTF that's out there for you to kind of play with. And again, I'm sure this means a whole lot more to you than it does to me. I would do a lot of poking around before I gave my answer to this. And I don't know if you can give an answer to this. I'm not asking you to help me cheat. I'm just like saying. So this is what this kind of a CTF looks like. And as coders, I think it would be fun to like go through here and see, can I identify what is the insecure code and can I fix it? And so this is out there, you know. I'm at the Wild West conference that's being held right now. And this was one of the options that I had as a participant to be able to play in this game. And so I'm trying it because I've never done it before.
Did you say if this was available in like different languages? Like, I do happen to know what Flask is, but in general, I can't.
Right. So I picked. So that's exactly it. So when you came in here, this tournament, you got to pick which language you wanted to do it in. And so I picked Flask because I know a little bit of Python. And so that's why I picked this. And so there were other languages that you could pick to do this in. And I'm not sure if you have to, like, if you can change it or not. When you go into play, I think when I signed up, it let me pick which language I wanted to. And there were like half a dozen languages. So yeah, so if you don't, you know, like Sierra just said, oh, I've heard of Flask, but I have no idea how to code in Flask either. So you could go into this game and pick your language. If you know C+ or C++, that was one of the options. And I thought about it because I played with a little bit of C, but Python is what I use most often. And so I figured, well, I'm going to try Python. So, so there are opportunities out there for you to test your skills in a game. So this is another couple here. So this here is one platform, and this is another platform. So this one here, Command and Control. Command and Control has events all the time, and I don't think I've ever paid for one. So they're often parts of conferences, and these are all apps. And so like right now, I am in this one, and it might still be open, it might not be. I don't even know. So if you can see up here, I don't know how it shows up. Like I have you're sharing your screen is written over this. I did this in 2020. And the first time I went in, I got a whole 75 points at PancakesCon. And PancakesCon is a free conference again. And that was all I could figure out. And I can tell you it was by input. Validation was not done, and I was able to get into something. That's all I was able to do. And so I've been taking a class right now on the securing web apps. And so this time I was able to get, in this event that I'm doing right now, 3,700 points. And so my skills are growing, but it has here all sorts of different types of apps. So there's a financial one here. This says HR, there's retail. Behind here is InstaFriends or something like that. It's a, social networking one, mobile IT. And then you have some more financial ones and now a couple of cloud ones. And these are kind of new, and I don't think I've had an opportunity to try those yet. And so these games are out there, and a lot of the challenges that you get in here are about coding again. So you'll get a piece of code and you'll look at it and there's something broken. I don't necessarily know what it is. Sometimes I know what it is, and then you have to fix it. In here, so this is Jeopardy style CTF. And so you can pick which category you want to work in. And even sometimes cryptography will have coding in it. You'll have to look at the code and you'll say, oh, that's what that is. And I can go out to the website and use that to crack those passwords. The web exploitation is here. And so Black Hills actually buys the ones that MetaCTF retires. When they retire a challenge, then Black Hills buys them and then they add them to their anti-siphon cyber range. And the anti-siphon cyber range not only has the challenge, but it actually will give you a video on how you would solve it and teaches you how to work through the challenges. So, and that one costs like $30 a month. So that's my plan for my summer. If I run out of CTFs and I have time before summer is over, I'm going to spend my $30 for 1 month in here to learn from it. And so, that's one dinner out, maybe 3 dinners out, depending on what your budget is. But, it's not inaccessible. And he hires from this, right? He actually looks to see who is doing really, really well in his cyber range and reaches out and say, hey, do you want to work in my SOC? Yeah.
You hear a lot of stories about people getting jobs because they hacked into something. Is that true? Is that real life, or is that just what people say on Twitter? Like, I hacked something, right? And now I work there.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking, right? Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to get yourself in trouble just to prove something to somebody like that, But,
I was muted. I know one person who was a hack for LulzSec, but so he is now director of cybersecurity. So he proved that he could hack, and then it got him a job along the way, but not for the thing that he hacked.
So, so I think that if you build your skills on that red team side as well, then you can start to code porcupines instead of even hedgehogs. This is a job, again, that I just saw today. And this says, this is what you need to know in order to work for us if you want it to move to the red team side. And so I think you can see by looking at this job description that if you had a coding background and then you went into cybersecurity, it would be a lot easier for you to go in with the skills that if you already knew how to do SQL and build those red team skills than it is going to be for me to go back and learn a whole entire language to be able to meet these. It's going to be a long road for me to become proficient as a web app security person. So thank goodness that I can do a lot of other security things that aren't web apps. I hope Sandy's not regretting asking me to speak now.
Never. You're doing wonderful.
So that's pretty much what I had for you today. I'm open for any kinds of questions you have about how to learn to do cybersecurity, more CTFs, like, I just scratched the surface in here, that the ones that I thought were particularly interesting for coders, but there are so many different options out there. I actually spent an entire day today teaching people about CTFs. It was like from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and that's all we talked about, or different kinds of CTFs and how to access them. So, if you ever want to do that kind of a talk, I'm definitely open for that, because like I said, I love my CTF, and every time I turn around, there's a new one. So
Could you tell us a little more about like the path that you took to get into this career?
Sure. So like I said, I was coaching my son's Cyber Patriot team, and I was a homeschooling mom, and he decided he wanted to go to a brick and mortar school. And when I was looking at coming back